Rikidōzan, the ballad of.
Professional wrestling started in Japan after the Second World War.
It's been bombed into flat nothingness, immediately after which 250,000 GIs and American and Allied service guys literally move right into town. So there's a major collision of cultures here.
They would have soldiers who were pro wrestlers before the war put on a show for the troops, and the sumo wrestlers and Japanese promoters got into this. Their champion at that time was a sumo wrestler called Rikidōzan.
Rikidōzan is, certainly to a generation of Japanese people, one of the most famous people in 20th century history.
Rikidōzan had come from sumo, but he was not big enough to compete in sumo and actually win, but big enough to do professional wrestling, which was brand new to Japan.
After he quit sumo, he went over to the States and wrestled there for a fair bit. What happened then is that he came back with that experience under his belt, and with the assistance of some of the shady connections he'd made in sumo, he set up the JWA, the Japanese Wrestling Association. He built the company around himself and was this massive star. Some of the most watched wrestling matches anywhere in the world in history happened around that era.
The bout that I was going to have with Rikidōzan, they said it's the second highest rated television show in Japanese history. 70 million people watched it.
It was this easy way of getting a sense of national identity to the Japanese by having Japanese wrestlers go out and beat American guys. It was mainly built around Rikidōzan and a Japanese judo world champion called Kimura. If you know the Kimura lock, he's the guy that invented that. These tag matches with Kimura and Rikidōzan against the Sharp brothers drew massive audiences.
And they're throwing him around, and every foul that you could possibly enact. The audience is beside themselves, in this arena. They can't believe what's going on. The despair is like a fog. The despondent, depressing despair of loss again, which already hung over Tokyo like a sick, blackening cloud, Bible black and starless. And then the third round happened. Rikidōzan came running out of the corner. The New York Times, the LA Times, the Chicago Times, all of those equivalents in Japan put it on the front page headlines. Rikidōzan retrieves the dignity of Japan and shows that Japan can once again rise to the greatest heights.
And then once he beat Lou Thesz, the Almighty, for the NWA International Heavyweight title, he willingly agreed to put him over. Lou Thesz was not a guy that was always willing to do that. That tells you the kind of respect that this man had.
Rikidōzan was kind of a national hero to the Japanese post-war, and it's weird because he wasn't Japanese.
Rikidōzan came from Korea.
He made his way over to Japan in a period during the war and then post-war. I mean, you're talking about the Korean War as well. There was just huge discrimination against the Korean people in Japan.
And he took on one name like the way the sumotori in sumo do. But Ricky went on to wrestle for many, many years. Behind the scenes, like most of my favorite heroes, he was a hard-drinking, whoremongering. He was hooked up with organized crime. He was part of the Yakuza.
Some people kind of felt that Kimura should have his spot on top of the company. There was going to be a best of 3 series. The second match of these 3, which was supposed to go to a draw, Kimura accidentally low blows Rikidōzan, and Rikidōzan loses his shit. The people that were behind Kimura, who wanted to see Kimura on top, they were pretty vicious gangster types in themselves, and Rikidōzan kind of had his own sort of Yakuza families looking after him. It's not entirely clear what happened in his death.
Well, what had happened, he went to a nightclub.
If you believe sort of one account,
Some gangster come up and wanted his autograph, and he wouldn't sign autographs.
it was kind of a guy acting in self-defense because Rikidōzan was stirring up shit. Some other people feel that it was someone attached to Kimura who was still upset. He was stabbed with a urine-soaked blade. He died of sepsis a few days later, in December 1963.
The next generation of guys were Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki. They were the 2 main proteges of Rikidōzan. And they were a tag team in the late 60s and into the early 70s.
Inoki and Baba would then split off and form New Japan and All Japan from in the 70s.
Baba and Inoki are the ones who set up most of the stuff that you're going to be watching because they created the 2 main promotions.
亡き力道山先生の意思を継ぎ真のプロレスに励んでいきたいと思います。